how corporations need them to reach new markets. They've been such sort of a powerful force in the messenger market. So the messenger market is such an important, powerful way in which we communicate now. And Facebook now own Instagram and WhatsApp, control about 75% of the messenger market. That alone makes it incredibly hard.
Censor yourself
and confidence. Look, when we talk about corporations,
a little more.
Let me get my tablet in the right position.
And then I'll allow for there to be competition. They can control the market, and as a result, don't have to make changes as a result of pressure. And so there are a lot of signs about whether or not Facebook needs to be broken up, whether or not Facebook needs to be turned into a utility, whether Facebook needs some other type of regulation. I think a lot of these things are being on the table and in different ways. And I think that this absolutely has to be a conversation heading into the presidential election cycle, because we know that Facebook plays such a crucial role in weaponizing its black communities in particular and suppressing the vote. And, I just have these sort of being in a kind of heated back and forth with Mark Zuckerberg about the looters and shooters post in the heat of this sort of uprising that Donald Trump put on Facebook that completely violated the four corners of the policy that Facebook has, that really violated the policy around its site. But to be sort of explained why it doesn't violate it. So once again recognizes why they need civil rights expertise. But at the end of the day, Mark called Donald Trump and they had a conversation about whether or not that sort of thing violated, and Mark kind of told him that he needed to slow it down and calm down. It's sort of like the idea where your best friend is like the police chief, and they know you're breaking the law, and they pick up the phone and call you, while meanwhile down the street they're locking everybody else up for doing the same thing. And this is the problem when you have an institution that's become so powerful, and in their interest day to day is not about fairness, security, integrity, but their interest is about their own growth and their own profit. They will do whatever they can, and Facebook has proven time and time again that's exactly what.
All right, Rashad Robinson, Code Change, keep it up. Keep it up as well. All right, folks, my panel right now is A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association, PAC, Eugene Craig, CEO, Eugene Craig Organization, and we'll be later joined by Dr. Julian Albo, economist, president, and mayor of Bennett College. Scott, I'll start with you. Bottom line is that, look, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want anybody telling him what the hell to do. If anybody who's a student of history, people go back to Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, all of the different major industrialists. The bottom line is President Teddy Roosevelt, they had to break those companies up. The Bells, Mom Bell, all of it. I mean, we've seen that. The bottom line is Facebook is no longer just this small entity over here. In fact, at Facebook and Google, they control upwards of 70 to 75% of all digital ad dollars spent. That means the rest of media, Comcast, Disney, all the other companies out there, us, all the large and small companies, we all got a share, 25%. They control the lion's share. That is significant power.
That is significant power, but I don't know whether that's significant illegal power. Every example that you gave your listening audience, the Rockefellers and others, they were keeping people out of the market under the antitrust laws, and that's why they were broken up, AT&T and what have you. Here, this is all new legal ground, at least. They provide a platform, and their root causes have always been in providing a platform for these open discussions. Hate speech should not be allowed, but free speech, and this is many arguments and many cases say this is just a platform for free speech. People can choose to advertise elsewhere, and more importantly, Facebook is not keeping people out of the market. They're actually creating a market for these discussions and these communications. So I think you make a good social argument, a civil rights argument, but I'm not sure that the legal argument is sufficient. Zuckerberg knows that, and right now he's got a friend in the White House. So I understand the challenge.
Well, actually, he doesn't have a friend in the White House because Trump is not happy with him. He's called for the breakup. He wants to sort of do whatever Trump wants. to ensure it doesn't happen. So you have Republicans who've also been calling for a breakup. So Trump
has not been talking to him about a public breakup or been using his platform to bash him, because there have these ongoing backdoor conversations. And in the end, they haven't broken the law per se. At least DOJ is not convinced of it. And so the civil rights organizations, while they are accurately truthful, they have a cause. I'm not sure they have a legal right to break up. And to be honest with you, naming a VP for civil rights who's not in the C-suite, that's a small concession. There's got to be different leverage. And if there's a new president in the White House who agrees with these civil rights organizations, they may have to be patient until you get a Democrat in the White House to talk about either breaking them up or doing something else.
But Eugene, what we're dealing with, we are dealing with a company that is dominating. And Facebook also wants to have it both ways, Eugene. For sometimes they say, oh, we're a tech company. Then they go, oh, no, we're a media company. Right. But we're not a media company, we're a tech company. Right. That's be both. No. See, but here's the deal. They want to dance depending upon what the issue is. Go ahead. Yeah, they want the protection that comes with being a tech company. The Section 230 protection that comes with being a tech company, but they want the content that comes with being a media and publishing company. And look, they are doing their best to have it both ways. But I do probably tend to. I'm a libertarian at heart. I believe in markets. I do think that probably the best solution here is for alternatives to emerge. I don't know if I necessarily want the heavy hand of the government coming in and deciding what platforms too big, too powerful, just because of the political nature of it, right? Do we really want Trump to come, in also alternative universe, see Trump to come in and make the argument that some black media outlets are too slanted or operate in murky legal waters, X, Y, Z? No. But I do think that, as I agree with Scott, the civil rights organizations just do have a balance. And I think, companies don't have an obligation to advertise on Facebook. You can pull those ad dollars. And I think, it may just take a more coordinated effort to, because the thing is this, it's just like with political donations, right? Your big donors, they're big donors. They're able to get big chunks. But that mass that comes from the small guy. And that's where their money comes from. Look, 6 to 8%, max 10% comes from the major companies. Facebook money comes from the smaller dollars. And the thing is this, until there's another way for a small startup company, right? Somebody's opening up a Shopify store to come in and advertise and reach a broad audience at a really, really, cheap cost per acquisition, you're going to have this issue because it becomes the easiest way for me to grow a business to advertise on Facebook and Instagram. But Eugene, if I might, final comment. Rights organizations are this hate speech issue. It's much easier for both sides to just put the kibosh on the hate speech, and then that would be a decent medium. Shut them down. Let me tell you something. Democrats and Republicans don't want to do that per se, or at least they'll do it as a last resort, because where do you begin and where does that end in the free market system in a capitalistic country? Well, the problem is, again, Mark Zuckerberg wants to have it both ways. Wants to have his cake eaten too. And he will. Well, no, he will. No, he will. He will until you get saying, if you don't make some changes, we're going to break your ass up. And if that the thing is, it's about Again, though, I understand that, but trust me, he begins to feel that particular pressure. He is going right now. He's already said internally, "Hey, these people are going to come back." No, they stay away. You keep chipping away at his dollars. But if he begins to feel the intense pressure on Capitol Hill, trust me, you'll get the message. Folks, let's go to our next story. In Atlanta over the weekend, the local armed black militia made headlines on the 4th of July by challenging the KKK during a march from the city of Stone Mountain Park. Of course, that's where, of course, there's this huge mural etched into stone there of these Confederates. The militia calls itself not the not fucking around coalition. Watch this. Now, the leader said the march was the result of threats made against blacks by members of the KKK and other white supremacy groups. Grandmaster Jay, founder of the group, joins me now on Roland Filter. Grandmaster Jay, how you doing?
Roland, good to be here. How are you?
Great. First and foremost, how many folks did you have out there?
We had a total of 1,500 that were in the formation, and then we had a lot of folks that were unable to carry weapons, but still were in uniform. That numbered about another 150. And then, of course, you had a volume of spectators that wanted to trail along to see what was going to happen. They numbered at about another 150.
So you, how long did it take for you to coordinate this? And was it also meant to let folks know, not just in Atlanta, but around the country, that there are African Americans today, in many ways, who were like the deacons of defense in the 1960s, who protected black communities from the KKK?
I would answer that in a twofold answer. First, it had a twofold purpose. If you remember, with the murder of Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, those were our members that showed up armed, the armed citizens you heard about. That was our first foray into this matter that has gotten completely out of control, with violence happening at the hands of, I hate to say it, white Americans against what appears to be predominantly black Americans. Not saying other people don't get shot, but for the racial piece to be added in there on top of everything else that we've been going through with the quarantine, with the pandemic and so forth, loss of jobs, and of course the tension being risen in the country, that we had reached the point that even though we had gone through all of that, there was a remnant of us that's been in place for quite some time. We're the older guys. We're the mature guys. We're your vets. We're your folks who are responsible gun owners. We're the individuals that, we remember the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now here in the 20s, we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. We know the law. We're law-abiding gun owners, so we understand the Constitution. And of course, we all believe in the Second Amendment of the Constitution and the First Amendment. So the first show of force was pretty much just to let folks know that this is not the way that we want to see things progress. But if they do, we're going to have to take Malcolm X's words and defend ourselves against these continued attacks. So we decided to do two things. The first thing was to exercise our constitutional right, to bear arms in accordance with the law, and of course to peacefully assemble. And then at the same time, send what we felt was a message to the heart of what we feel is probably the driving engine behind a lot of what is now coming to light. The FBI report that said that there would be an insurgence of white supremacists and those folks into law enforcement, into the military, has begun to bear fruit. We're seeing that in the increased numbers of police-involved shootings. We're also starting to see certain behaviors that are not so much related to police, but are related to the Jim Crow era and related to the era of lynching. A spate of lynchings across the country that no one seems to want to explain, like all of a sudden black men became experts on how to tie nooses and jumped off of trees all of a sudden, when the history that we have within our culture is that hanging is the last thing that a black man is going to think about doing, not taking anything away from suicide rates, which we study. But in this particular instance, given the atmosphere that we were seeing, with the resurgence of what appears to be very evident white militia that the police are unwilling to even so much as detain as they do black folks, with the rise in the protests that happened after George Floyd, and then again, the increased presence of what we could only deem as agitators, just like police, but heavily armed, we thought it would be in our best interest to send a message to the heart of what we believe is the driving engine behind it, the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. What we found out when we dealt with the McMichaels and Mr. Bryan down in Brunswick is that they were all members of the same Klan lodge, which spoke volumes. And when we found out that the most of the folks in the town were okay with that, we know about the Deep South. Well, in this particular instance, Stone Mountain represents the birthplace or the rebirthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. So we decided to do something that had never been done before. And that was to peacefully assemble a formation, not a mob, not a bunch of protesters, not a demonstration, but to call a formation of our black militia, which is what we are, and to actually go up to the mountain and make a statement that we wanted to make under the First Amendment to the Constitution, and then leave. That was the intention. In the process of us planning this, here comes the threat. And this threat was communicated by major media, communicated by the White House, Department of Justice. So we took it at face value, even though we hadn't seen anything of some of these other threats. You were not going to continue to threaten the Black race. It was not going to happen. And it was time for us to show folks that we can defend ourselves. There's been a lot of misinformation out there where folks are trying to paint us as a terrorist group, or that we're out to attack folks. And, no, that's not the purpose. The purpose was to send the message. The message was sent very well. And we also demonstrated that we could organize ourselves in such a fashion that no one got hurt. There were no incidences of anyone accidentally killing themselves. There was no property damage. There were some exchanges of words between some of the folks who were made to leave the park. Folks don't understand that the law enforcement evacuated the park when we came, and they closed the park for us to avoid any conflict. So it was a very peaceful event. As a matter of fact, it was a history-making event because it happened simultaneously with another march that we had in Phoenix, Arizona at the exact same time. This was a message to all of the white militia and to all of the folks who continue to believe that you can treat Black folks any particular type of way, and that we will not stand up as U.S. citizens and arm ourselves per the Constitution.
When you're on that particular point there, I mean, we have seen all of these different white militia groups come out mad, protesting. They don't have, they don't want to wear masks, things along those lines, and storming state capitals. What I've said to people that when I see this video, the actions of these Black folks is totally different than what I've seen for white protesters in Michigan and Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
I mean, but people all say, "Oh my God," because again, we know how America is. We always say it. America freaks the hell out when Black folks with guns show up in public.
Well, you have to understand something, Roland. If you've read the book Brainwashed by Tom Burrell, it talks a lot about some of the socialization.
I actually interviewed Tom Burrell.
Great book. He actually talks about a lot of the behaviors that have been ingrained into certain cultures, so that automatically, by default, we automatically assume something to be wrong, even if it's not against the law. And one of the things that he talks about in that book is the fact that African Americans have been socialized to believe that the presence of guns is an evil thing. And that's why the image of the Black man being the evil crime marauding across the, rape, robbing, and pillaging as if this is the birth of a new nation has been ingrained on both sides of the fence. However, when white folks decide they want to pick up guns and run up on state houses and threaten the police and nothing happens, Black folks see that and go, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And as you all know, it's no fun when the rabbit has the gun. So to be honest with you, we again are not a mob, and we're not talking about something that we feel about. We're looking at a situation that is deteriorating, and we feel we have to defend ourselves. Our policing models are broken. Remote policing does not work. But we feel there's a need for us to get back to community policing. We feel there's a need for us to start protecting our own communities again under the laws that are established in the land, and also the educating of our own people. Not just gun clubs, but the actual ability that a gun is necessary for you to have on your person legally in this apartheid-like environment that we live in the United States.
Well, and the reality is, which I've said to people, that if you choose not to, you don't have to. Look, I fired a gun one time at the FBI Academy. It was a submachine gun. I was a grossly overrated experience. So I was like, yo, I'll go back to playing golf. But if somebody, I mean, that's just me. And so my family has never had one in our household. That's just me. I don't need to have my brother. He's going out hunting with his son and his daughter. Great. And again, but the thing though is we also understand history. When those Black Panthers rolled up in the state capital of Sacramento, no white legislators freaked the hell out and immediately moved against that. And in fact, if you also take it even further, you can go back to the creation of the NRA. The bottom line is white folks in this country have always had a response to Black resistance by grabbing guns.
Well, let me throw something in there, Roland. Here's the deal. There's two things that we have to address before we can go any further. The first thing is that the double standard, the hypocrisy of it all. White militia marches, nobody says anything. A couple of guys get locked up in Virginia for impersonating police officers with twisty ties to throw somebody in a truck and go lynch them. Nobody says anything. Black folks assembled to peacefully march to a notoriously controversial landmark. May say a few words under the First Amendment rights, and all of a sudden, I mean, I've seen the headlines around the world, everything from anti-Semitic, which we're not, to we're out to attack white folks, to we're trying to take Texas. Texas is already geared up for an invasion. We heard they're getting ready. People are telling us to come on down, let's duke it out, and we're like, that's not what we said. Folks are always quick.
For the folks who are understand in Texas, the new Black Panther Party. Look, I covered those guys in Dallas.
Well, you know, but here's the point.
It's like, oh my God.
But the point is, we're not taking Texas. Let me say this on your show.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm born and raised there. I was covering those guys in Dallas. People were freaking out, and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. Black folks walking around with weapons, because I mean, I was there when Khalid Muhammad was with them. They went to
Absolutely.
When they went there and they had their guns, people were freaking out, and I was like, no, the white folks over there got their guns, open carry state. It doesn't say open carry for white people. It says open carry.
Exactly. Now, here's the second part, and this is the part where I've been waiting to say this to you. I want to thank you because you are the first person in Black news media who saw fit to have a conversation with us about a historic event that has happened that has been ignored by mainstream media. It has been ignored especially by Black media. And believe it or not, most folks are hearing one twisted version or another. So folks were wondering, when were you guys going to show up? And I wanted to thank you, Roland, because someone said, Roland wants to have you come on. I'm like, you mean Roland Martin? Someone finally spoke up. Roland, I have to tell you that I have newfound respect for you. After the comedy show you put on Monique's page, Monique Presley's page, I thought that was hilarious. I didn't know you could be so funny. But now you have my newfound respect in journalism again, and I want to thank you for being the first Black news media outlet of major proportions to actually have the NFAC come on, discuss what we were doing, why we were doing it, and to speak from the perspective of the Black citizen.
Because there are people who are commenting on Periscope. I see them on Facebook and YouTube as well. So one of the things that I saw, one particular comment folks wanted to get from you, is that we've seen the shootings that are taking place in Atlanta, the 8-year-old girl being killed as well. And one of the folks said, should there also be this presence in protecting African Americans in cases like that? What's your comment to that?
It's kind of ironic that they asked that question, because once we completed the march on Stone Mountain and we were done and we had been escorted out of the park, we actually went down to the Wendy's where Rayshard Brooks was killed. And we met with the young men that were out there guarding the place, and they asked us for pointers. And one of the guys even said when we got there, what took you guys so long to get here? And we walked around and they showed us the place. They showed us the stores. And we told them, you guys want to get some training. You guys want to, you want to do this. You got to do it right. And everything was great. And then we left to escort Rayshard Brooks' sister down to Centennial Park to a reparations rally. She asked us to be her security. And while we were down there, again, it was a great time. And then we left. We're smart enough not to hang around any town after sunset. We're not that stupid. So we were long gone. We're not from Georgia. Some of us were, but we all know that we should disappear. And then to hear what happened later, the shooting and so forth, was distressing us because it was right where we was. And we kind of felt like, at first we thought it was, someone was trying to be retaliatory because we were there. Because the young men did tell us that the Ku Klux Klan had come by and shot up the place a couple of nights before. But then again, I can tell you now that the state of things in Atlanta at that time, there was lawlessness, not just in that area, it was throughout the city. We saw a decreased police presence, and we saw a lot of folks who were taking advantage of that. So the hearing of that shooting distressed us. But what probably incensed me even more was the fact that there was not a structure like us in place that was already doing community policing. Because now that we've got a photograph and a videotape of the young man, that's obviously not even qualified to be in the NFAC. We are an old folks organization. There are no young kids per se in our organization. Now that we've got a video of what this young man looks like, and we know there are 3 or 4 other suspects involved, we too have gone public to demand that that individual be turned over by the community so that they can be dealt with, because that is inexcusable. And yes, we do believe that is another justification for us to have our own community policing as opposed to remote policing, because those folks know who's in their neighborhood. So I do support that, and that is one of the tenets of the NFAC.
When you're speaking about the shooting that was Corporal Turner, posted on my iPad, this is the photo that authorities released. They are looking to question this individual
in that particular shooting. Of course, we also have several young black kids who were killed in Chicago over the weekend as well. Last question for you, and I've got people I'm reading comments from people who literally are commenting right now on Facebook. To the people who normally watch our YouTube channel, we have some issues as so my apologies there. If you got a problem with our YouTube channel, or our Facebook page, our Periscope page, we're streaming on all three. So, Grandmaster Jay, the question to you is, folks are saying, do you have chapters in other cities? And if so, is there a location where people can go to get more information? They also want to know about starting chapters in their own place under your group's banner. They want to know where do they get information.
Absolutely. Anyone who is, there are two answers. Anyone who's interested in becoming a member of NFAC, you can go to info@blacknfac.com. I'll say it again, info@blacknfac.com, and give us your contact information. There is a vetting process, and some of those, they have to do with the ability to own guns and attain or carry concealed. So you know your own background, so act accordingly. The other, if you want information on the group itself, you can either come directly to me, myself, and through our portal on Instagram. That's my official Instagram account. That's the official Grandmaster J on Instagram for the time being. Instagram is censoring us very heavily these days, as is Facebook. So we're looking at moving to other platforms. I am here on YouTube, but my YouTube may become the new place. But right now, we are controlling the flow of information, Roland. We're controlling it because we learned our lessons from COINTELPRO. We learned our lessons from Operation Black Messiah. We've learned our lessons. So we're not as openly with our information as some organizations are. We are a militia. So we have to protect that information. So we control the input of whatever that comes in. Additionally, anyone who's curious about chapters, there are chapters around the country. We're still birthing chapters. As a matter of fact, the young man in Louisiana that they had the run-in last week, him and I have talked several times about them becoming the Louisiana arm of the NFAC. If you already have a militia-type organization in your city, feel free to reach out to us, and then we can have a conversation, and then we can talk about whether or not we append that, because we are a coalition, which means that we work along with different elements. However, our core group itself is pretty large. So if you want to join the NFAC directly, that's what you saw in Stone Mountain. Those were all NFAC. Then you please feel free to get in touch with us. There is going to be, and I'll end with this, Roland, we're going to do a recruiting tour. Where I am going to come to certain cities. And if you already have your chapter ready to go, I'll have my team with me. We'll inspect your folks. We'll make sure everybody's up to snuff. We'll check documentation, and then we'll swear you in. And you are then officially a member of our particular organization. What happened in Stone Mountain also, we swore in all of those people. They had come from many different places. This was their final step. The 2.5-mile road march up and down hills in the hot sun with all the quarantine food you ate was your final test to see if you could make it into the NFAC. But that is that's all I have, and I thank you for having me. And I would hope that everyone realizes that we're setting an example of how you should respond in the ongoing phase of aggression against the Black community. Thank you again, Roland.
I appreciate it. And again, for the folks who are out there, I unfortunately I do not have it with me, but it is on my bookshelf at home. I'm trying to actually was up right now. Just give me a second. I want to. So for the folks who again don't understand history, this actually Lance Hill is the author of a book. Go ahead and show this. The Deacons for Defense, Armed Resistance, and the Civil Rights Movement. And so you need to understand that particular book. And I'm going to pull up another book. Just give me a second. For folks who don't know, I actually interviewed him. He was one of the leaders for Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Charles Cobb. And Charles Cobb also wrote a book. Give me 1 second. And again, remember last week we were discussing this. Greg Carr showed you a particular book as well that dealt with the issue of the history of African Americans and gun rights. Charles Cobb's book. I'm looking for the cover, but I think it was called "There's Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed," and he was actually talking about the history of gun rights during the Black Freedom Movement. Yeah, that's today. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot,
Mr. Martin. Thank you.
All right, folks. Let's talk about coronavirus. There are 3,128,292 confirmed cases.
You see the video? My people